Testing, testing. All right, perfect. So everyone, welcome. We are going to be talking today about the intersection of Solana and Ethereum. We have some projects here that are thinking very closely and deeply about how to take what they believe works with Ethereum and maybe what they believe doesn't, and also take what they believe works and and leave out what doesn't with Solana, and bring them together into new kinds of blockchains, new platforms that where developers can take what works from both. So, well, I'd just like to start out today by going down the panel. Everyone, if you could just introduce yourselves and talk just for a couple seconds about your perspective on this intersection between Solana and Ethereum.
Thanks, Jenny. So I'm Neel. I'm with Eclipse. And what we're doing is focusing on building the most performant layer 2. And the way that we're approaching that is we forked the Solana layer 1, which is a highly performant layer 1 blockchain, and we're turning it into an Ethereum layer 2 by adding in fraud proofs, ZK proving, and other types of verifiability. So our take is that we want to take the best parts from different ecosystems. Ethereum is the king as far as settlement and censorship resistance, whereas Solana has been optimizing on performance. So we want to get the best of both worlds.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sukanya. I'm Senior Integration Engineer from Neon EVM. So Neon EVM is a fully compatible Ethereum solution built on Solana. It's basically an EVM which resides inside Solana's virtual machine and leverages all the Solana's capabilities. Basically, we are making Ethereum dApp developers' lives easier who wants to migrate or expand their like dApps to another ecosystem like Solana and leverage all their capabilities.
Hi, my name is Ajit Tripathi, and I work for Polygon on founder programs. I have always been interested in this intersection. So, personally, when I was at Aave, I invested in Neon. I'm also, an investor in Monad. So there are lots of cool things going on. From a Polygon perspective, we are a ZK powerhouse, right? We are very, very interested in aggregating the Internet of Value. So we think that there will be lots of different layer 1s and layer 2s, which bring different types of applications to the users. And I think Solana has done a great job of a few things. So first of all, they have brought a product-first culture, right? So as in, if you use, okay, I'm going to get shouted at in the Ethereum crowd, but I'm going to say this anyway. That Solana has this, Ethereum has a very strong research culture. So if you read the Ethereum protocol specs, right, everything is like mathematically robust. The economics of Ethereum is incredibly robust. The protocol specs are incredibly robust. I used to work with Vlad Zamfir on CBC Casper. It's brilliant. Solana has an engineering and product culture. I think these two things need to come together, right? So where there is this mobile-first experience that Solana is delivering. So, but beyond that, I think what we are seeing across L2s and L1s is a fragmentation of users and liquidity. So from what Polygon is working on is the aggregation layer. We think that Ethereum is the global settlement layer, and Ethereum will be, is the highest economic security chain. So all of the zero-knowledge technology that's being invented by Polygon and our peers will be used to bring unified liquidity through the proof aggregation technology that we are building.
Hi, my name is Keone Hon, co-founder of Monad. Monad is building the parallel EVM and bringing parallelization as well as other optimizations to the Ethereum virtual machine, basically delivering a new layer 1 that is the best of both worlds between Ethereum and Solana. Monad is as if Ethereum and Solana had a baby. And so just to talk a little bit more about some of the things that we see, we can see that the Ethereum virtual machine is really the standard for smart contract developers. About 96% of all TVL in DeFi is in EVM applications. And there's a very robust research community in addition to all of the developer community and tooling and libraries. There's a really robust research community around the EVM as well. And with Monad, we have gone really deep in terms of rebuilding the execution and consensus stack from the ground up, and looking forward to launching Monad at the end of this year.
Now, Keone, I don't know if I quite like the image of a child between Vitalik and Anatoly. But we have at least two projects here that are thinking just about that specifically with Eclipse, well, maybe not that specifically, but Eclipse and Neon really stand out to me as interesting because you two, as we talked a little bit off stage, are almost the inverse of each other. One project thinking, all right, well, we want to use the SVM in the Ethereum ecosystem. The other is sort of the opposite. So I'd love just for the two of you to talk a little bit more about why Eclipse and Neon, respectively, have made those decisions. And Neel, let's start with you.
Yeah, I think what these projects demonstrate is that Ethereum is many things. It's a cluster of security properties, including censorship resistance. It is the EVM. And then there's also ETH, programmable money, which was the original narrative. And we're essentially picking different parts of that, where Eclipse taps into ETH, it taps into Ethereum as a settlement layer, but it does not retain the EVM. Whereas Neon is the inverse in that it keeps the EVM, but it's on an entirely different L1, which is Solana. And actually, this is a bit of an alpha leak, but we intend on having some Neon deployment on Eclipse in the coming months. So I think that the Neon take is essentially that, especially when it was first developed, it is actually a parallel EVM. It's the original parallel EVM in that the memory model leverages the parallelism of the Solana virtual machine. And they essentially want to bring the developers from Ethereum over to Solana. Whereas Eclipse is trying to continue to tap into Ethereum, keep the developers on Ethereum itself, and in fact, we want to move them away from the EVM because we just don't think that the EVM is necessarily the most performant VM from a first principles perspective.
Yeah, I totally agree with Neel. So we want the Ethereum developers to come into the Solana's ecosystem. And since Solana has the most unique feature of the parallelism, so executing transactions in parallel is very important in the blockchain space. Like regarding the gas fee hikes, which we see on Ethereum, like layer ones. So to reduce that thing, like parallel execution is very important in on any blockchain. So that is the reason we wanted like Ethereum community, which is very large. So we wanted something to build for the Ethereum community so that they easily can deploy their apps, existing apps on Solana and get the Solana's benefits of high transaction speed, low gas fees, and of course parallel execution.
Yeah, so I go back to 2015 in Ethereum. Used to work for Consensus. Very proud of all the dev tools work we did. And so when we look at the EVM, it's a whole ecosystem. It's not just the EVM, but it's also the libraries, right? It's the Open Zeppelin libraries. It's tools like Hardhat. So all of those things are part of the EVM ecosystem, right? So including the training materials, the ability of developers to learn from each other and become very productive very, very quickly. So, but Ethereum also has given rise to all the other blockchains. I mean, ICO has produced so many blockchains. A lot of good engineers have come out of Ethereum and gone on to work on Solana and other blockchains. So at Polygon, we used BlockSTM, the library that Aptos guys had used to do some parallelization work on the POS chain. It had certain benefits, but I think there is a lot more that needs to be done to really get the maximum juice out of EVM on a layer 1. And that's I think there is a lot of amazing work that Keone and team have done. When I looked at it a year ago, I was like, nah, this is not going to work. But I'm quite amazed by what you guys have pulled off.
Now, let's talk a little bit about community, right? So the community of developers, I think, on Ethereum and Solana, in terms of the two blockchain ecosystems that have the most robust developers that are most dedicated to them, I think that these two are the ones to beat. Now, Keone, when it comes to building on for Monad, how are you thinking about the differences, maybe philosophically or in the focus on what types of things people want to build between Ethereum and Solana?
Monad is focused on supporting developers with big ambitions to build applications that can cross the chasm and reach mainstream adoption. If we think about what it takes for an app to become #1 on the iOS App Store, It means having hundreds of thousands or millions of daily active users. So if you imagine an app that has 1 million daily active users with, let's say, 50 transactions per user per day, that's 50 million transactions or 500 TPS. So it's very clear that we need much more performance in order to support any app that gets to mass user adoption. And Monad is enabling that level of adoption, that level of performance, by introducing optimistic parallel execution directly into the EVM, as well as introducing other optimizations like parallel state access with a custom database that our team has built from scratch in C++, storing Merkle tree data natively so that we actually get performant parallel execution. So I think in terms of the kinds of developers that we're excited about, we're here to support. It's tough building a startup. It's tough being an early stage entrepreneur, bringing your vision to the world. And so we're here for app developers that are building ambitious apps that cross the chasm to mainstream.
Now, Sukanya, I remember hearing about Neon for a long time in the Solana ecosystem. I remember at Breakpoint maybe 2 or 3 years ago, there were some demos of what this would one day look like. It's been a long time, a long effort in bringing Neon to the fore. I'm wondering, what are some of the tech challenges that come with bringing the Ethereum virtual machine to Solana?
The tech challenges are like definitely like Solana's architecture is very different than Ethereum's, and the Solana's virtual machine has a capability of embedding other virtual machines inside of it, and Neon EVM is an example of that. So the technical challenges are like for giving the full compatibility to the Ethereum developers. It's not, we do not we can't have anything like only one smart contract cannot do like all this stuff. So we have to have like a complete full architecture. Like we have our own proxy server which like wraps the Ethereum-like transactions, unwraps the Ethereum-like transaction coming in from the user side, and then like wrapping it into Solana-like transaction. So there are a lot of modules in between like to give a full compatibility to the Ethereum developers. So definitely that was a challenge. And yeah, not only that, like we have like our own tracer API endpoint, like to give the full compatibility like the EtherScan module, which we have on our block explorers like Block Scout and Neon Scan. So there are a lot of things to be built, not only the smart contract inside Solana's virtual machine, but to give the full compatibility, we need a lot of stuff. So.
I can add a little bit of context too, because I've worked pretty closely with Neon, just given that we're planning on the deployment, and then also I was building an EVM on Cosmos a long time ago. And just for context for the audience, in case folks aren't familiar with the Neon architecture, it's essentially a smart contract on Solana. And that smart contract is an EVM bytecode interpreter. So you can consider it as like one order of magnitude, maybe like 10 times overhead over just executing straight opcodes. And some of the differences in Solana's execution model compared to Ethereum is that you have to specify what accounts are being read from or written to. So in order to gather that information, the Neon team built out this proxy where you submit the transactions there first. It simulates the transaction. It identifies which accounts are invoked. And then it adds that metadata to the transaction before it is signed and sent to the Solana VM. So that's a high level on how the Neon architecture works.
Now, Ajit, I think you've been around longer than many people here in crypto. It's a compliment.
That's a good thing.
It's a compliment. Okay. It means you get to invest in all these wonderful people. But you've got a great perspective into the development of the two ecosystems and the communities around them. I mean, Ethereum had a lot of trouble in the early days with the DAO hack and stuff like that. The Solana had its time through the ringer in the months and just over a year after FTX imploded. But both communities obviously are still very strong and I think growing. So if you could just walk us through how you've seen that come about.
Yeah, so my former boss, Mr. Lubin, was here some time back, right? And the work he has done to get Ethereum to this level is incredible. Absolutely phenomenal. So, so communities, right? I think there are two things. One is we are going through a paradigm shift in blockchains. I think that's the idea of modularity. So Ethereum layer 1 was perfect for the time it was built. It was a step change on top of all the colored coins we had. And it created a whole new way of building decentralized applications, and it was a breakthrough. Now, people have been working on improving Ethereum in multiple ways, right? I think Polkadot did a great job with shared security. And that was also a co-founder of Ethereum, Gavin. But what Consensus was able to do is create this, this culture, fund a lot of moonshots, most of whom didn't work, right? If you look back at our investment portfolio as Consensus, most things didn't work. But then other people came along later on and created incredible DeFi protocols, created moonshots, created DEXs, created games, created things that we hadn't really, we dreamed of, but we were too early, right? So I think now when better technology becomes available, when Monad or Solana or Neon or Eclipse or other platforms create new programming models, and it's not just this, right? It's also Fuel VM, it's Move, it's Cartesi, it's RISC-0. There is this Cambrian explosion of new programming models. There is Maiden VM. Lots of people are creating these new ways of building applications, and with the availability of new computers, right? When your computers are more capable, then you create applications that you hadn't formally thought about. You give developers a tool to play with, and they invent things that you hadn't thought about. And that's what happened with Ethereum. The first few applications were funny, right? It was Lockit, which is a DAO for opening a lock remotely. And I looked at it and I was like, what the hell is this? And CryptoPunks guys would come around to Ethereal conferences and whatnot, and it was like, what the hell is this? I came from enterprise, and now look at CryptoPunks, right? Now look at NFTs. So I think what I'm really excited about is that developers using all of these new, what's possible with Monad or what's possible with Neon or Eclipse will start inventing things that we haven't thought about, right? They will create central limit order books that are much faster than that's possible on Ethereum. So I think once all of these things get created in a sort of this monolithic and modular architectures, then we need to bring these things together into some sort of unified liquidity, right? And that's Polygon's vision. So we want to create an Internet of Value which enables, and we're just continuing on with what Vitalik, Joe, and everyone else in this space has been envisioning. We're just standing on the shoulders of giant. We want to create an infrastructure for all of these things to come together and work in a trust minimized way where users can flexibly move across the different infrastructures and blockchains, and then use this in a seamless way, right? So just like we do on the internet, we don't care about whose routers we are using. We don't care about whose LAN is behind this, right? Or what servers we are. So I think we want to go to that level, and Ilya is working on chain abstraction. Avail guys are doing something very cool. So we are all in this together, and but this stage is where I think a lot of that invention is happening right now.
Yeah, I think it's worth mentioning that there's a lot of complexity in the stack at this point, and with Monad, our vision is to make it really simple for developers so that they can use the common standard with the EVM, Solidity or Viper or other languages that compile down to EVM. They can use all the tooling. They can use Foundry. They can use Hardhat. Exactly. They can use the wallets that they're familiar with, and just this one system that has implemented optimistic parallel execution and solved some of the lower level problems to help each node be very performant and each node get the most out of the performance of the hardware. That solves a lot of problems for developers who don't have to worry about all this complexity.
Yeah, I have a tweet that says if once Monad works, we should replace the Geth clients with Monad clients. I don't know if that's going to happen, but
yeah, there's always possibility of collaboration. Monad intends to contribute to the Ethereum research community and propose EIPs.
That'd be amazing.
Yep.
Now, Neel and Sukanya, one of the biggest criticisms that people levy against Solana is that sometimes it doesn't work, right? It was only a couple weeks ago after a year of working pretty much flawlessly that the chain, unfortunately for it, didn't work for a little bit right there. Now, how do instances like that affect what you're building, if at all?
The perspective that I think Eclipse takes and many other Ethereum layer 2s is we're building on a several decade time frame, and crypto is very early. So blockchains, Solana, and also layer 2 blockchains have outages. That's just reality, especially when you're pushing the frontier of what's possible to build on chain. So to me, that's not really a flaw in Solana's design. It's actually a growing pain that's somewhat inevitable. And we've seen it for Arbitrum, and we've seen it for even the Eclipse testnet. One time our testnet validator or testnet sequencer ran out of Sepolia ETH. So things like that happen, and I think that's a part of making something more battle tested. And I think that from Eclipse's perspective, when we fork Solana, we're removing a lot of the most, like, I guess the least formally verified properties, such as the consensus for Solana is not formally verified in the same way that Tendermint on Cosmos is, and things like that. So I feel that we're taking the parts that are relatively uncontroversial, which is the performance optimizations of the virtual machine, and some of the optimizations in the mempool, and then bringing those optimizations to Ethereum.
Yep, I agree. The flaws, I cannot say that those are flaws. Like, of course, like we are growing, like Solana's ecosystem is growing, and like every blockchain has some, like sometimes like they have to go through this situation, I guess. So I hope like Solana will like grow with time. Of course, like we should give time to the technology. Like it's evolving like every day. So these kind of things happen. So yeah, I hope like Solana guys are like doing really good, and they will definitely like overcome this situation very soon.
Yeah, I have a lot of spicy interactions with Toli and Mert on Twitter. So, yeah, I think they're great guys. They're doing a great job of what they're building, and they built a phenomenal community. Obviously, there is a lot of, I worry about, Solana's research foundations. Is there a consensus? Is the consensus BFT? Is it mathematically and theoretically robust? I don't know the answer to that, right? So I don't really know decisively, as someone who's dabbled in research, as to what the theoretical properties of Solana's consensus, if there is one, are. So that sometimes worries me a bit, but I think they will figure it out.
Totally agree with that. Yeah, the Solana research community is just not as fleshed out as Ethereum. And it shows in fee markets too. There's a lot of things about their fee market that are just not incentive compatible in the way that you'd expect. And there are types of proposals that probably would have never been merged into Ethereum as an L1.
Well, thank you all. I wish we could talk a little bit more about fee markets and all that stuff, but we got to wrap up, move on. Thank you guys for listening. Make sure to try out both chains if you haven't already.